America is back to losing. With Joe Biden as president, America is back to losing again. And it is so sad. And it was so unnecessary. This is really, really tough to watch, huh? And it does. It reminds people of Saigon, 1975, right? Leaving the embassy. America was winning with Donald Trump. It's one of the reasons why he won, because Obama, Biden, they were good at losing. He recognized that, and he turned it around, and he promised he would.
Our country is in serious trouble. We don't have victories anymore. We used to have victories, but we don't have them.
And with Joe Biden, it's back to losing. 7 months after his inauguration, there he is. Look at this. This is pathetic. He's alone at Camp David. Why did he go there? That's another story. We're not sure yet. So the optics are terrible at the White House, but even just catastrophic overseas. Now let's go to Afghanistan. Look, to be honest, I don't care who runs Afghanistan. I don't. We've got too many other things to worry about. But what I do worry about, American prestige, American power, and American safety. And it's all being compromised by these images, and especially out at the airport. Have you seen this yet? This is as chaotic as it can get. Chaos could have been avoided. For all those people running to the airport, desperate to get out of the country, if they could see what I'm about to show you, they might turn around. The situation at the airport, look at this. We've seen people sitting on top of planes, on the wings, all over the place. This is what happens when the U.S. gets out too fast. We got out way too fast. We could be living with the implications, ramifications for a long time to come. First of all the weapons, they're now in the hands of the Taliban. State-of-the-art weapons, brand new, some of them. Taliban, they'll put them to good use probably, maybe against women and girls. How about the state-of-the-art Air Force that Joe Biden is still proud of? Well, that is now property of the Taliban. And welcome home, Al-Qaeda, terror fighters, you name it, thugs, bandits, terrorists, former Guantanamo detainees. They're all being let out of prison inside of Afghanistan by the Taliban. Now, a normal person would say that this is chaos, this is utter defeat, this looks terrible. But check out the spin job they tried for a good chunk of this weekend, the Biden administration.
This is standard operating procedure in any such situation. There are plans in place if we're leaving an embassy compound, relocating our people to another place to take all of those steps, the ones that you just listed. So this is exactly what we would do in any of these situations. And again, this is being done in a very deliberate way. It's being done in an orderly way, and it's being done with American forces there to make sure we can do it in a safe way.
Deliberate, orderly, safely. Boy, this is beyond spin. This is dishonesty. These are lies, and they are, I don't know if they're kind of holding Joe Biden out to dry or trying to defend him, but this is horrendous. What were they thinking? Why is he alone this weekend? I really want to know. But just a few weeks ago, Joe Biden said so emphatically, and unfortunately for him, he was pretty coherent when he said it, that everything we're seeing now would not happen. Impossible. No way. Highly unlikely at best.
Is a Taliban takeover of Afghanistan now inevitable?
No, it is not. Because you have the Afghan troops have 300,000 well-equipped as any army in the world, and an Air Force against something like 75,000 Taliban. It is not inevitable.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Your own intelligence community has assessed that the Afghan government will likely collapse.
That is not true.
Can you please clarify what they have told you about whether that will happen or not?
That is not true. They did not reach that conclusion.
What is the level of confidence that they have that it will not collapse?
The Afghan government and leadership has to come together. They clearly have the capacity to sustain the government in place.
And do you see any parallels between this withdrawal and what happened in Vietnam, with some people feeling...
None whatsoever. Zero. What you had entire brigades breaking through the gates of our embassy. 6, if I'm not mistaken. The Taliban is not the North Vietnamese army. They're not remotely comparable in terms of capability. There's going to be no circumstance where you see people being lifted off the roof of a embassy of the United States from Afghanistan. It is not at all comparable. So the question now is, where do they go from here? That the jury is still out. But the likelihood there's going to be the Taliban overrunning everything and owning the whole country is highly unlikely.
So just about everything he said there, he's wrong. He's wrong. And I think it's a combination of Joe being dumb, Joe being stubborn, and Joe being deceptive. He said the question is, what happens next? The question is, what happens next for Joe Biden? And what happens next to his Secretary of Defense and his Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff? Lloyd Austin and General Milley, these two should be in a great deal of trouble. They should be fighting for their jobs. They should have been fighting for our country, but we'll get to that in a moment. Over the past couple of months, they have made it quite clear that strategic concerns that come with these big jobs were not really their concerns.
I want to understand white rage, and I'm white, and I want to understand it. So what is it that caused thousands of people to assault this building and try to overturn the Constitution of the United States of America? What caused that? I want to find that out.
Virtue signaling and making the military woke. That was their priority. Why would they do that, especially Milley? So he could keep his job. You know, he's up for renewal in just a couple of months. And I mean, he really worked it. He really wanted a firm grasp of critical race theory, and here he is showing off about it.
And I personally find it offensive that we are accusing the United States military, our general officers, our commissioned, non-commissioned officers, of being, quote, woke or something else because we're studying some theories that are out there. That was started at Harvard Law School years ago, and it proposed that there were laws in the United States, antebellum laws prior to the Civil War, that led to a power differential with African Americans that were 3/4 of a human being when this country was formed. And then we had a Civil War and Emancipation Proclamation to change it. And we brought it up to the Civil Rights Act in 1964. It took another 100 years to change that. So look, I do want to know.
All right. I think he rehearsed that, all right? That is state-of-the-art virtue signaling. And by the way, I applaud Congressman Gates. You know, he never served in the military, and a lot of lawmakers, they're intimidated by people in uniform. He's not, and he shouldn't be. That's our civilian leadership, and it's military service. They are in service to us. Don't forget that. Too many people in this country want it to be some sort of a police state where those in uniform are in charge. That is not the case, although they want it that way. I want to talk also about Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense. He's kept a low profile, but when he does speak, it is not impressive. Again, the same woke, America is racist and we got to fix it nonsense.
This department will be diverse. It will be inclusive. And we're going to look like the country that we support and defend.
Look like, style, feelings, base names. Fort Benning, that might offend somebody. Fort Bragg, that might offend somebody. What's offending a lot of people is seeing our country's image tarnished overseas by a lack of planning, by a lack of preparedness. This man is so in love with the victim narrative. Even him, Secretary of Defense, and a former 4-star general, feels like a victim.
There's probably not a job that I had since I was a lieutenant colonel where some people didn't question whether or not I was qualified to take that job. It's the world I live in, and I'm sure that the other officers that you talk to would probably say the same thing. There's not a day in my life, David, when I didn't wake up and think about the fact that I was a black man. I would go someplace with my staff, and we were wearing civilian clothes. Somebody would come out to meet the general, and I wasn't the guy that they walked up to.
They thought that maybe one of the white people was the general. Now, he thinks that's proof of us being a racist country, a racist Pentagon, a racist society. You know, Dr. Ben Carson, Trump's HUD secretary, brain surgeon, told me a story once. When he became a brain surgeon, he was one of only 8 black brain surgeons in the entire world. And he had a similar reaction sometimes. He'd brief patients, and then they would be like, well, where's the doctor? And he'd be like, I am the doctor. And people would get nervous, they'd laugh and whatever. And he said, it's okay, I understand. And he would often have a friend for life. That's not the way he played it, and it's not the way he plays it. This military that he has so many grave doubts about to this day made him a 4-star general. And he's still, I think, talking up problems that don't exist. For instance, at his confirmation hearings, it was all about extremists in the ranks, discrimination, and how to handle COVID. Didn't talk much about Afghanistan, unfortunately, or the Taliban, unfortunately. And I can tell he took his eye off the ball big time. Watch this. Have you ever been in a situation where your boss asked you something and you really weren't quite ready for the question? I think he was in that situation here when he was responding to a member of Congress.
Secretary Austin, this Monday, the Taliban seized control of a key district of Kunduz province in the north of Afghanistan, and it's the latest in a series of recent battlefield victories after peace talks have stalled. Dozens of districts have been taking over the Taliban since May 1st, when NATO began withdrawing, and you've said that you, quote, we're looking at the situation every day with a fresh set of eyes to see if you know the pace we are setting is the appropriate pace, unquote. So given the accelerating pace of Taliban victories and control of key districts since we've been withdrawing since May 1st, how are things going? I mean, is our withdrawal at an appropriate pace when they're picking up all these districts around the country?
Well, thank you. We are focused on, and the task that we have at hand is to conduct our retrograde in a safe, orderly, and responsible fashion. We've developed a very detailed plan to do that, and we have accomplished the task according to plan thus far, and really provided for the safety of not only our forces but our allies as well, and we'll remain focused on that.
All right, that's world-class tap dancing, okay? That's when you don't have that much to say, you use more words, and you kill time, you run out the clock. I didn't think that was a substantive answer. Hey, but look, he works for Joe Biden. Speaking of a lack of substance, and he came out this afternoon, had a few things to say. Number one, blame Trump. Number two, blame the Afghanis, but don't blame Joe.
When I came into office, I inherited a deal that President Trump negotiated with the Taliban. Under his agreement, U.S. forces would be out of Afghanistan by May 1, 2021, just a little over 3 months after I took office. U.S. forces had already drawn down during the Trump administration from roughly 15,500 American forces to 2,500 troops in country. And the Taliban was at its strongest militarily since 2001. We gave them every chance to determine their own future. What we could not provide them was the will to fight for that future. But if Afghanistan is unable to mount any real resistance to the Taliban now, there is no chance that 1 year, 1 more year, 5 more years, or 20 more years of U.S. military boots on the ground would have made any difference.
All right, but with a bit more planning, a bit more attention to detail, maybe a little bit more hard work on your part. You don't seem to be working very hard. Your administration seems consumed with the trivial, with the irrelevant. We would have avoided this catastrophe. Innocent people put in this position thanks to you. This is your responsibility, Joe Biden. Boy, I wish Donald Trump was still there. And by the way, he was never able to do what he says he's about to do. But I mean that as a compliment. This is the day he declared back in June of 2015. Take a look.
Nobody would be tougher on ISIS than Donald Trump. Nobody. I will find within our military, I will find the General Patton, or I will find General MacArthur. I will find the right guy. I will find the guy that's going to take that military and make it really work. Nobody will be pushing us around.
The only thing is, he did beat ISIS. Nobody pushed us around with him as president, but he never found that top general. Mattis didn't work out. Dunford didn't work out. Milley turned out to be a traitor. You know who the guy was, the guy he was looking for? It was him, Donald Trump. He made it happen.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.